Old Guy Talks to Me is a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. Join me regularly as I share with you the things that I've learned about how to create that life that you wish for, that you imagine. Just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to be old. And be sure to rate, review, and share this. And now, for our podcast. If you're like me, then maybe you get tired in the afternoon. Maybe you're not as focused later in the afternoon. Well, I want to tell you something that I discovered. And actually, not just me, but me and my wife. We started taking a very powerful antioxidant called ESSC60. And what we found was that we had more energy and more focus, especially in the late afternoon. Myself personally, I slept better. I'm a horrible sleeper. So I encourage you to try this. Use the link and try for a month. See how you like it. If it doesn't work for you, great. But I think you're going to find that you're going to want to get on the subscription service like we did. This is Orsi Old Guy from www.oldguytalks.com, helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. And this is one of those things. This is Orsi Old Guy from www.oldguytalks.com, where I help older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. And today I have a special guest, a very famous guest, Riana Milne. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
You did. Perfect.
She is a certified global life and love coach, a certified clinical trauma and addiction professional, and a certified mindfulness coach. She's also the best-selling author of a couple books, Lessons in Life and Love. She's also an educational speaker, and she has done a documentary on radical dating, finding lasting love over 40. And her client from that show is now happily married. She has a great website, and I'm going to go ahead and put that on. You can be able to see that at the bottom here in the streamer. It is, I've spent a little time on it in preparation for this show today. And I will tell you that there is a wealth of information and things to do, including the travel section where Riana talks about the places to go and the places not to go.
Yes, that's a fun hobby for me. My travel blog.
Yeah, it was. Some of those were really wonderful, and some of those was I can't believe. I think I actually stayed at that one in Santa Monica once. And you're right. It is a dump. But that's what you get sometimes when you go to California, especially Santa Monica. So good. So, Riana, tell us a little bit about what got you started down this path of talking about relationships and love and all that stuff.
Okay. Well, I was always into motivating people to reach their dreams since my 20s. I actually had a model and talent company for 10 years, a school and an agency, and put people all over the map in fashion and in talent, actors, singers, dancers, models, and really enjoyed that. But I found I was doing a lot of counseling and coaching behind the scenes. So I went back to school in my late 30s and got a triple master's in applied clinical and counseling psychology. And then I went the traditional route of opening an office, private practice in New Jersey. I'm from Philly, but I had an office in Egg Harbor Township, which is by Ocean City, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Jersey girl here, go Eagles. So I had that 14 years, but I also did some other work where working with trauma with kids in schools. That's known as a SAC counselor, student assistance counselor. Working in Atlantic Care hospital setting with teens and adolescents that were cutting and had traumatic lives. Working in drug and alcohol rehab centers with adolescents and also with women from the prison system, which is called drug court. And I enjoyed motivating them and helping them transform their lives. when I turned to the trauma work and got certified as a clinical trauma specialist, it was after I had a traumatic relationship myself with someone I truly loved, that we had an amazing life. So what was so surprising about it was that he had a whole secret life on the side. And this is what I call Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You know, Dr. Jekyll, everyone loves, you know, and he was very well known in the community, and he was, you know, principal at a school, but he had a whole different life. And then it exploded on him, not only at the school level, but in our personal life. He ran out of town, and I was left with the aftermath of shock. So I wanted to investigate what would make him do this. And he's there, I don't know, I've sabotaged everything I've always loved. And I said, well, I'm going to figure it out. So I stood up for myself and annulled that marriage and got to work doing the research because I needed the answers for my own healing. And I knew he was what's called ACOA, an adult child of an alcoholic. But there's many more traumas that he had growing up. And I was happy to do this work because it really led to my ability to forgive and understand the dilemmas that he came to me with that were unhealed and very unconscious. So this is what led me to my work. And then I looked at all the other people I worked with in trauma over the past 20 years now. And I created the childhood trauma checklist, which is the top 10 traumas that I saw most often working with all these different populations and analyzing the relationships of not only my own, but my clients. And then I put together where the negativity is showing up in their adult lives now, in life, in love, and in career. So I made those correlations.
So you mentioned childhood traumas, and you spent a lot of time on that. What are some of those childhood traumas that affect people's lives? Because it's kind of, to a certain extent, I kind of go like, okay, you can only blame your childhood for so long. You can only blame your parents for so long. You can only do that for so long. And then at some point, it's you. It's basically how you're handling it. So what are some of those childhood traumas?
Yeah, the thing that's most important to understand is that it's not about blaming our parents, and it's not about feeling shamed about some of our behaviors. It's about changing what you understand. But if you don't acknowledge it, you can't change it. And if you don't understand it, you can't change it. So there are the top 10 traumas, and I'll go into them because most people say, well, my childhood was normal, until they hear them. And the Kaiser Permanente group out of San Diego did this great study with over 17,000 people that found people with what they call ACEs, adverse childhood events, have earlier illness and diseases in life. And that means heart attack, diabetes, fibromyalgia, Epstein-Barr virus, MS. I mean, they correlated with all the top diseases. So that study was magnificent, but they didn't do anything about how it impacts you in life or in love or in business. And that's kind of my end of this whole study. So the top 10, as I go through them, the studies show that 90% of people have at least 1 to 3 of these. So the listeners, if they have pen and paper, they might want to make a little list. The first column would be me. Second column, partners or someone you remember struggling with. And the third column would be parents. And the studies show that childhood trauma goes through at least 3 generations. So if you had it, your parents had it, and so did their parents, and so on. So the first one is if you grew up with any addiction. Now, being an addictions counselor, I identify 11 of them. So if your mom and dad had any of these: drugs, alcohol, sex, which means a chronic cheater, porn, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, gaming, TV watching, and workaholism. So there's 11 there. The second one is any verbal altercation between your parents. So witnessing domestic emotional abuse, verbal abuse. Also verbal is if you never heard, I love you, or got compliments, or heard, hey, great job, I'm proud of you. And instead you might have heard like, you'll amount to no good, or you're better, just stay over there, we don't care about your opinion. So it was kind of verbal put downs. If you heard those are all forms of verbal neglect or abuse. The third one is emotional abuse or neglect. The fourth one is abandonment, and there's two types, fault and no fault abandonment. So a fault abandonment would be if a parent elected to never be in the child's life, or if they were married and then they left the family and they don't come back. If the child does go with the parent, let's say it is a father, and the dad's just kind of checked out watching football all weekend and the child's in the room on the computer and they're not really engaging. That could have been helped. There could have been quality time there. So those are all forms of fault. No fault abandonment is very real. This is if a parent happens to die early, if a parent goes off to war, or like my dad, who was FBI and CIA, my dad was like James Bond. We never knew where he was. So I remember as a young girl asking, when's daddy coming home? And my mom would disgustingly say, well, I don't know. And she was raising 5 kids mostly on her own, not knowing where her husband was. So I could understand her reason for being upset. But that was how he supported our family. And we couldn't know what his job was at that time. You know, you don't tell your family these things.
Sure.
So the next ones are if you were adopted, part of foster care, or had to live in other people's homes, your parents couldn't keep a home for you. Trauma number 7 is the most common. I call it personal trauma. This was if you were bullied, if you felt different. Let's say you grew up and you were called the nerd, or, you know, you had asthma, so you couldn't be on the sports team, or you were labeled ADHD, you know, in the school system, and you felt different all the time. You weren't part of the cool kids. This can really wreak havoc throughout the years of not feeling good enough. And there's goods and bads of personal trauma, and I'll go into those. And then the next one's sibling trauma. That's if your sibling bullied you, if they were born with a medical issue, and they might have needed more of mom's and dad's time and attention. But most commonly, you would have seen your sibling as being the golden child, the favored one, either more pretty or handsome, more athletic, more talented. There's something where they got more of mom's and dad's compliments and accolades. Trauma number 9, I have 2 parts in there. Part 1 is family trauma. If your family came from a dangerous neighborhood, or if you're part of military families, you're moving every 2 to 4 years in the U.S., putting your kids as the new kid in school all the time. If you remember growing up with a lot of lack or discussion around money, we don't have enough, hearing these lack messages all the time. And having a parent that's incarcerated. And the other part of 9 would be community trauma. That would be our school shootings, our mass shootings, loss of huge communities by Mother Nature, floods, fires, hurricanes, mudslides, etc. And then the last one is if your parent might have had a mental health issue. And us growing up, our parents did not go to counseling, right? You know, so we kind of have to guess as baby boomers. You know, and the 2 most difficult was bipolar, manic and depressive. Manic phase could be a spending spree or a gambling binge. Depression can come out as fatigue, extreme anger, or just checking out emotionally. And then borderline personality is fast trigger anger. You never know what mood you're going to get. When they were good, they were great, but when they were bad, they were horrid, leaving a kid in a very walking on eggshells state of being and high anxiety. So those are the 10 traumas.
Right. Well, how do those relate to someone, let's say in their 50s and 60s, and you mentioned you had a client who your oldest client was 74, so maybe that might be a good thing to talk about how some of those things that happened in the childhood phase affected that person later on in life, and I
Sure.
caused all sorts of events to happen, including multiple divorces and things like that.
Yes. Well, I loved him when he walked in my office. Great guy, very personable. And this was, you know, behind the mask. Mm-hmm. And within about 10 minutes of chatting with him, he broke down in tears and cried. He goes, I'm going to die an old man. Nobody loves me. I've had 4 wives. They've all left me. I had an alcohol addiction. I had a gambling addiction. My daughter won't talk to me. Like, he could not hold on to relationships. And he had, you know, 7 out of the 10 traumas. He grew up with a lot of trauma. So I said, well, this can be the beginning of the rest of your life, and it can be fantastic, or it can be miserable, and you get to choose. But I can help you heal from all these unconscious traumas if you have an open heart and open mind, and let me coach you to being the most phenomenal guy you've ever known yourself to be. He goes, really? I said, let's get started. So again, it's a process which I define as a rainbow. You don't know what you don't know. He didn't know what he was doing wrong. He goes, well, I'm personable, I'm funny, I'll talk to anybody. But that was obnoxious. I mean, he had no behavior controls, and he thought when he was drinking, he was funny, and it wasn't, so we had to really dig deep into where he was sabotaging himself. So as you learn, you get better, and then you'll slip, and then you'll get better, then you'll slip. Eventually, you're at the other side of the rainbow, where indeed there is the pot of gold, which is total personal transformation, a totally new way of thinking and being. And he got to the point of going, he'd left the wife who was divorcing him. And I said, let's go. Let's get you out there in dating world. Well, he didn't really want to do that, but he followed all the steps I suggested. He met a lovely lady, a few years younger than him, only like 3 or 4 years younger. And they have been dating. He's 78 now. And he keeps sending me the cruise pictures from White Night. Every time they take a new cruise, they're in dance position. It's beautiful to see. And he's there, Riana, I am at the happiest I've ever been, ever in my life. So his whole life changed, his whole outlook, his whole way of being. He was always blaming everybody else for his misery. And he had to take ownership and responsibility. And we really had to break down what he was sabotaging in his life. So this shows up in many different ways. So let's talk about the different ways it shows up in love. So he used humor. So he was one that, if he said something wrong at his house, he would get whacked. But he said, I'd be whacked, he'd be hit. So he had a lot of physical abuse there. And when he went into school, he became the class clown. And that way he could get love and attention. So, and his mother was cold and withdrawing and did not save him from his father. So he's what we would call a mother hater. So he had anger towards women. At first, he wanted their love. So he would do whatever he could to charm them and schmooze them to get love. But then if they did one little thing wrong, he'd get angry. He expected perfectionism in his partner, and it wasn't realistic. So this is all coming from, the cold withdrawing mother. So we had to get that reality into his mind and be able to speak about his feelings versus react to his feelings. We have something, if you're living in the light, you're proactive. If you're living in the dark side, you're reactive. Or we also call it the unconscious or uneducated side, the highly traumatic side. And living in the light is proactive, positive, calm, peaceful, loving. And, so we have to teach all the new behavioral patterns and let him consciously see where he was doing wrong and then start correcting the patterns. So, yeah, very interesting case.
So that's kind of interesting because a lot of people at some point in their lives, they say, well, I can't change. I am who I am. You hear that kind of that resignation, like I am who I am and accepting as I am.
You can do whatever you want to do. It's choice.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Yes.
I mean, I've said this many times. There's no such thing as status quo. Either you're getting better or you're getting worse, but there's no such thing as like maintaining. That just doesn't happen in any area of your life.
Right.
So I think so. What is you kind of touched upon this, but as let's say couples have been together for a number of years, and what things happen in a relationship that sometimes are warning signs of that things aren't going well, that maybe that there's communication is not there, that maybe divorce is coming. People talk about the non-fight divorce, that people all of a sudden just decide to get divorced even though they've never fought. All sorts of things. So what kind of things do you see in couples that you deal with that are warning signs, or that they come in with problems that they come in with?
Yeah. Well, people of trauma attract people of trauma. And these relationships, and I hate to say it, whenever you go on a dating site, you always see the men say, must have chemistry. If there's not chemistry, I'm not interested, right? And this is one of the worst things to fall in love with, because chemistry draws you to the past behavioral issues. So if your mom was cold and critical, chemistry will draw you to a cold and critical woman. Mm-hmm. And it's all unconscious, which is really, really difficult. So this is what I have to educate my male clients. You want to know what the cake is. Who is that person, right? Do they have good values? Are you going in life in the right direction? Look at all her life aspects. Is she successful in business? Is she a great mom? Does she have a great relationship with her kids? Is there faith-based there, some type of faith? Who is she, right? Is she a good and fun person to be with? And do you share many interests together? So it's not just what does she look like? And I know the male caveman brain, the first thing they want is attraction. You're hardwired that way. You guys, you can't help it. We get that. Okay. And women, the men should know, are hardwired for safety. They need to feel safe. Because I hear women say, oh, women always just want money. No, women want to feel secure. The way you behave, with the way you treat her, right? And yes, financial. Are you responsible financially? A woman is hardwired for security. So I have to tell my women clients, look, the woman you met, your man, that yes, aging is natural, but do you still keep yourself up? You know, after marriage, did you go into the sweatsuits and not doing your hair or your makeup? You know, I mean, you have to keep yourselves up for each other. The dating has to always continue. I had a male in my office, a couple. And he said, well, I married her. Why do I have to keep taking her out on dates? I said, well, do you still want to have sex? And he laughs at me. He goes, well, of course. I said, well, then get the woman out of the home, get her relaxed, away from her to-do list, away from the cooking, the cleaning, and everything else she does, all her chores, so she can relax. Women make love with the 5 senses. So do you look nice? Do you smell nice? Are you telling her nice things? Is she hearing music? Is she tasting food? You don't need elaborate dinners. Have a glass of wine and a few appetizers and make her feel special. It doesn't take a whole lot. But the last thing that a woman wants is watching TV all night. After the 11 o'clock news, TV goes off and says, you want to make love? No, because she's not turned on. Her 5 senses are sleeping. Okay, so there's so much to educate men and women when it comes to intimacy, sexual passion, romance, and friendship. Many couples also put the kids first. No, you got to put each other's first. I talk about balanced triangles. It should be me, you, and us. Okay, so the man has his work and his hobbies and friendships. Woman has the same thing. And what do they have together? Well, that third leg is often shortened. They don't do the things they used to do after the kids come. Now it's all thrown on the kids, all their time and attention. So what's happening with the marriages, once the kids are old enough or go off to college, they split. One of the other partners is out. It's like, I'm done. We just have this friendship, or you're just my roommate. I don't want to be with you anymore. And that's sad, because the romance stopped many years ago. And you're both responsible, right? Yeah. So that's what usually when the couple comes to me, they don't want to be divorced. They have good lives. They have properties. They want to keep their lives together. But there's a lot of repair that has to be done. And I first start with going back to their childhood traumas and what are they throwing into the relationship? Who are they blaming? What should they be taking responsibility for? Can they talk about their feelings when they have a need or an issue, and in a loving and kind way? And I have to re-educate them about that type of communication. So once each other knows what the traumas were and their pain points, they can be much more empathetic partners and learn to talk through their issues when they come up. Like, let's say the man lashed out at this woman and he says, sorry, hon, that was not about you. I shouldn't have lost my temper. I think I was triggered when my boss talked mean to me today. I didn't deserve that. I shouldn't have brought that home to you. So, they're now recognizing what they're doing, why they're doing it, and communicating those things with their partners.
Yeah. I think a lot of couples get into ruts. And you talked about dating, and that's such an important part to really set that as something that you do on a regular basis. That you do take care of yourself in a lot of different ways. But that whole concept of dating or doing something special on an evening is or could be in the morning. It's an important part. And I think that a lot of times, especially I think for men, in a lot of times don't really get that's an important part to basically just be in that that courting mode.
Always.
To be in that, because I think that's an important part for a long-term relationship.
Yes,
especially once the kids leave, because we became empty nesters 2.5 years ago, and but we already had actually talked about what our plan was on that, and so it's been a great journey so far.
Yeah, you always want to have couples goals, like where are you going? What's your future look like? What do you want to do in retirement? Traveling together, getting away from the kids, and when you are older, rebuilding the spark back. Again, when I see on the dating sites, because I help people get on the dating sites, right, and help them write their profiles. I saw a man with a big beer belly, like a bowling ball was there. And he goes, the woman must be a size 2. She must be perfect and fit. I'm like, guy, get a grip. Look in the mirror. It's all about, getting the trophy girl at the end of the journey. So, I want to encourage the men to, be more kind and loving when they're out there dating. Look for real substance in the woman. Who is she as a person? Relate on that level and, be able to communicate your thoughts and your feelings, get more genuine in this journey. Yeah.
Or just be yourself. Yeah. And I think that the whole concept, at least how we approach it, is that there are times that I'm primary. There are times that my wife is primary, and there are times that we're, at the same time. So we really understand that there are times that actually what she's doing is more important than what I'm doing, and vice versa, and to really, to be cognizant of those things.
Yeah, supporting each other in your career. Sure. Yeah,
being there for each other. So you mentioned the dating sites, and I've been married for 27 years, just recently celebrated our 27th anniversary. So nice. I've not been on any dating sites forever. Actually, the last time that was when they had classified ads.
Yes.
I'll tell you how long that was.
Yes, I remember.
But I do have a number of friends who are divorced and single, and what are the differences between like eHarmony versus Match.com versus what are some of the other ones? Everyone knows about Ashley Madison. So, what are the differences between?
That ruined a lot of marriages.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you some of the differences on the ones I like for my older men and women. I like Bumble because Bumble gives women the choice to write the men first. And men go on there and they can see the women float by, but they can't contact them first. So if a woman's contacting them, they're interested. And men, please write something important about yourself. We want to know, what is your career? Because the career tells so much about you. If you're a financial advisor, we know your level of intelligence. We want that, intelligent business person, most of us. So we don't care if it's you want walks on the beach. We all want walks on the beach. Tell us who you are. You're a dad. Of how old are your kids? Your hobbies, your interests. We want real good, solid information. So Bumble is a good one because women reach out to the men. And Match has a known history for making the most matches. And, I've always said if a man is paying to be on a dating site, he's taking it more seriously. POF, plentyoffish.com, has lots of numbers, but it seems to be a lot of players. not taking it so seriously because it's free. Another one I like for the well-educated, those that have master's and doctorate degrees, looking for another educated professional, is elite singles. I like that one a lot as well. It tends to bring in the more professional person. So those are the ones, Match and Bumble, if the guys were getting started on their dating journey, but have several pictures. I would not have a picture kissing a dog. That does not do anything for us. Have a professional look in a suit. A sport outfit would be great. A casual outfit in jeans. That's basically what we're looking for in a nice smile headshot. That's what we want. We want to see, can this man fit into my life? A lot of people that are older don't really prefer the pet in their life because they like travel at this stage of their lives. Us women, we're very active raising our kids, and that we don't always have pets because it's like, great, my kids are out, they're doing great. Now it's my turn to travel. So if you like world travel, say that. Looking for a partner for travel and doing, street fairs and theater. And, that equates to like, yeah, I could have fun with this guy. These are a lot of things that I like. So when you're writing those profiles, think, what would a woman be attracted to about the features of who I am? We're not really looking for the gym rat who's in the gym 5 days a week for 3 hours a day. No, fit equals healthy. Healthy is great. But we don't want obsession of any part at this point in our lives, right? So we're not looking for the muscly guy. Guys think that's what women really want. No, it's not. We want someone who's honorable, who wants, a real relationship, who can be honest and trustworthy, and yet who's fun. And, great dad, good relationships with his family. That's what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. What in the couples that you've coached and done counseling with, where is it that you see that you say, okay, this is not going to work?
For couples,
what's the warning sign that says this is not going to work?
As a psychotherapist, and I was a psychotherapist 17 years, and then went total coaching globally in 2017. When the couple came in the door, we could usually tell that one person is totally checked out. And they're doing it to tell the kids, see, we tried counseling and it didn't work. So some of the signs are, we might be the fifth counselor that they're trying. And it's usually the guy. He doesn't like any of them. He's had the affair. Supposedly he broke up for a period of time to see if counseling works. But secretly, or he relays to me, no, he's still in touch with the girl. So he's already checked out of the relationship emotionally and every other way. He's just doing it to appease the family. So we can usually tell, if they're really into it 100%. Usually one partner is 150% in and the other one's about 50 to 25% in. Those are the most difficult to try and work with.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have both people
really wanting
committed.
The change. Yeah. And with coaching, they really want the education. See, coaching's more educational and it's a much higher service. Like my couples, they have text access to me. They can email me. As a therapist, I could never provide that kind of service. So if there's a fight, they pick up the phone, Riana, we need you to help patch us through this one. They put me on speakerphone and I help them if it's Saturday at 5:00. So it's that higher level of service. And they come to me, really wanting the new communication skills, wanting to stop that toxic pattern of behaviors going on and on. If there's jealousy, control, people pleasing, impulsivity, these are all childhood trauma things that are showing up in their relationship. Codependency, love addiction, all from childhood trauma. So we have to fix those issues first, teach them new communication skills, and then they do beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. So,
Riana, you have several different levels of how people can interact with you. Can you kind of go into some of those, a little bit about what services you have with offices?
Yeah. So I help singles who are looking for love. These are usually people that have been in and out of several relationships or had several marriages, all kind of ending with toxic partners. And they're looking for emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious love. They have not been told, how to find that person, the right questions to be asking if they're single and dating. We call that conscious dating. Then I do help couples who are struggling in toxic patterns to have a better, more loving and safer, passionate relationship. I help people in life transition. So high school kids that don't know what they want to do and they have to go to college and they're floundering and they don't think they want to go. They're just lost. So high school to college. And then once they come out of college to the career world, they can't seem to find the job that they want. So I call that life transition coaching. So those are the 3 types of coaching that I do. And it's all global. I work with people around the world as long as they're English speaking. And we work on Skype or Zoom so that we have, the face-to-face. And that's it. So.
All right. And there's also lots of resources on your website.
Yes. I have my books, Love Beyond Your Dreams, the #1 bestseller, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. And the sister book, it's meant to go with it, is Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success. And there's free chapter downloads there. And then there's the 4 free love tests. People love those. There's one for singles, one for couples. If there's any red flags in your relationship. There's one called ACOA. If you've had trauma, it's a longer test. And then the childhood trauma checklist is there to see if you've had any of the 10 traumas. And then if you need to meet with me, you're concerned about your test results, simply reach out to me and sign up for a Life and Love Transformation Discovery session. And I'll meet with you for 1 hour. We dive deep into all your test work, and I find out where the past traumas are impacting you today. And then I give you a challenge for a few days, and we meet the following week, see how that went. And then I'll, tell you what type of coaching programs I have and see if any are a good fit for you.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's a number of resources that are available there. So, Riana, I want to thank you. This has been very, very interesting discussion because I think it's something that people don't often talk about and have. It's an important part of their life in terms of how they're going to progress, whether they happen to be single or they happen to be in a committed relationship, and how to make that relationship better. So I really appreciate you coming on the program.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I like hanging out with the guys, with the boys. I grew up in between 2 brothers. I'm most comfortable hanging out with the guys.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, that's all we have for today. This is Oris, the old guy from www.oldguytalk.com. Helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. Until next time.